Sasquatch, Ghost, Dogman, aliens, demons, shadow people, skinwalkers, even the Fae. Our universe is vast, dark, and wrought with infinite unexplained phenomena. We have tasked ourselves with assisting humanity in finding the keys to unlock the mysteries that abound in and around our world. What we intend to reveal behind the curtain of darkness may very well invoke those fears long tucked away in our memories. We will meet that fear head on as we strive to shine the light of understanding on these phenomena. The goal is to arm you with the power of knowledge to confront and even combat these entities. We welcome you to join us on our quest. We are Midwest Night Watchers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Piercing the Veil.
Hi, everyone.
Tonight we have a special guest all the way from the UK. You probably all know him, Andy Decodes. And he also has the group, the 12th Dimension. And we're excited to have him on here and dig into all the stuff that he's experienced and talked to about with his guests. And there's just all kinds of high strangeness going on in the UK these days, just like there is here in the US.
Yes, we've heard all about our area and Canada, so we just thought we'd hear some paranormal cryptid stories from the UK.
So we'll go ahead and bring Andy on, and we'll get into this and see what he has to say about all this weird activity going on. Hi, Andy.
Hello.
Hi, Andy.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. We enjoy having you. We like watching your show, and I figured you'd be a good fit to come on and tell us some stories.
Thank you. Yeah, I really do appreciate it. So, yeah. Where do you want me to start?
Oh, anywhere.
Well, you know, you're talking about making a venture to Rundleman Forest, so we can start there and see where we end up.
Yeah, so basically, I'm off work next week, and I don't usually get that much time to go out and investigate anywhere. Just because of family stuff going on and just regular everyday living. So I've actually had time now to make plans to go out and go places. So all being well, this Tuesday we're going down to Rendlesham. It's about a 2-hour drive for me. So I'm meeting up with a guy called Alex Lovelock who lives in that area. He does a show on a Sunday about 7 o'clock UK time called the Sunday Lounge. So I've been on there a couple of times. He's been on mine. So I said, as soon as we get a chance, we'll arrange to meet up. So as long as it's not raining, the typical UK weather, we're going to go down and meet up, go to the UFO landing sites and take some photos and videos. Now, Alex has said that he's been there and he's seen stuff and he's felt stuff, but a lot of the stuff that he picks up is when you've taken the photograph. So you're not seeing anything till afterwards. So hopefully I'll get some good footage or some, I don't know, odd activity on camera, shall we say.
Awesome.
So
now, are you going to the specific site where they had the encounter that everybody talks about?
Yes.
Oh.
So I interviewed Gary Heseltine a couple of months back. He had a new book come out called Non-Human. Now he was one of the military personnel that I think it's so hard to remember everything that everyone says. He was one of the main investigation team at the time in, was it 1981, 82 when it happened?
Yeah, somewhere in there. I can't remember.
Yeah, early 80s, I think. He was like one of the main investigators. So he came on to put everything straight about what happened and because there's a lot of misdirection, I suppose. So he came on to say about the book and what happened and what he believes went on at the time. So yeah, just through talking to him and through the job that I do, I get to drive around Rendell. I used to drive around Rendlesham quite a lot, but I don't have the time to go out and do anything because I'm working. So it's like a few minutes here and there if I'm lucky, and it's like, right, I need to go. So it was this Tuesday, definitely going down. And I was chatting to Alex about it, and he goes, if it's raining, then there's no point because the photos aren't going to turn out well or whatever. But I've checked the weather. It's supposed to be a bit the odd shower and that. But I'm going to take some of the equipment that I use when I go out investigating anyway, so it'll be protected. I think regardless, I'm going to go down. Unless there's a thunderstorm, I'm going. Put it that way.
Well, you have a whole week off, only 1 day trip. You don't have anything else planned?
I'm doing two streams on my channel this week. So I've got Paul Blake Smith on Wednesday. Do you guys know him or heard of him? So Paul Blake Smith is, sorry, he does a lot into the UFO ufology, and he was the guy that wrote the Nixon Gleason alien encounter.
Yeah, okay.
So like I said, it's so hard to remember every guest and what they're about, and so if I don't write notes down, it's gone. My memory's shocking.
You mentioned equipment. What is your favorite equipment that you like to use?
One of my favorites is a laser pointer.
Okay.
But not just, it's more for just, if you're out in the woods and it's dark, and even if it's daylight, and you're trying to explain to someone, I've just seen something moving over there, and you're trying to point and getting them to look down your arm to the tip of your finger, they could be looking anywhere. So if you got a laser pointer, you can pretty much pinpoint where you've just seen something.
Yeah.
Just a quick click. So I think that's one of the better things to use.
Now, how big is the forest? Is it a huge like national forest for you guys, or?
It's for the size of England, then yeah. But it's like I've driven along it, and they have gates, and they're all numbered. But then every so often you'll get some farm or some flat land or a small village that splits it, and then it will start again a bit further on. And I think I drove, the longest point was about 12 miles, something like that. But then it's not straight, it's all curvy and what have you, and you got hills and everything, so.
Right.
But I didn't realise it's pretty much right on the coast. There's a place called Shingle Street. So that's an actual area, and that's where you go, like the sand dunes and where the sea comes in. It's like, looks a bit like quicksand and what have you, but then you go around and it is right on the coast.
Wow.
Now,
I didn't realise how close it was.
Was there ever any reports of like the forest being haunted or incidents before the famous UFO incident? Do you ever remember anybody talking about it?
I've never heard of it before then. So, because I'm not from that part of the UK, that's in southeast, and I'm from the northwest. So it's like I'm from there, and Rendlesham's down there. So it's like one side of the country to the other. But I'd heard of it, but it wasn't big on my list. So it wasn't until I moved to the south that I got to know more about it.
So what can you tell us about the incident itself? Have you been studying it, and like obviously you've been talking to people that's been there or reported it?
I know there's the when and there's getting the photos and that, and it happened. It was Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, I think Boxing Day, from what I can remember. Don't hold me to the dates because I might be.
Right.
I know it was around Christmas week, and there's a few people that encountered it, but then there wasn't really a lot of information ever given out about it, and it. I said I'd heard bits about it, but didn't really take any of it into account. I was busy doing other stuff. It's like, even though I've seen UFOs and had a couple of encounters, it wasn't at the top of the list, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I remember right, I think it's close to a military base, right?
Yes.
And they were out on patrol, and they saw the lights coming through the trees.
Yeah. So you got Woodbridge Air Base or military base, and it was all kind of in the air. But once you go on Tuesday, I'll be able to. I can message you and give you more information. I can update you on how far from the base the landing site was and all that, because I know I actually delivered to that military base with me where I work. So I've been on the base a couple of times, but where the landing site was to where the base is, I honestly couldn't tell you.
Okay.
But it's a big place.
Wow.
Yeah, that was quite spectacular for that area to have something like that and to have the military involved. And they came right out and was talking about it right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unlike our Roswell, where they kind of talked about it and then tried to cover it up.
Yeah. But it's like with Rendlesham, I spoke to a few people, and not many people have heard about it.
Wow.
They've heard of Rendlesham, but no one can kind of like relate as to why they've heard of it. So it's one of them, I think.
Well, you mentioned
just how it goes.
You mentioned seeing UFOs yourself. How old were you when you saw your very first UFO?
The first one that I recall, I was I'd say about 9.
Wow.
Between the ages of 8 and 10. I got my first push bike for Christmas. And I grew up on a housing estate. There's about 100 houses. So you had the main road going straight up and all the little avenues coming off it. And it was Saturday afternoon. I was riding around on my bike. It had been raining. So at that age, I'm just riding through all the puddles and splashing and all that. And then I'd gone round to the next street down on the same side as where I lived. So I just stopped and just looked straight up. I remember seeing metal nuts and bolt. It was two-tone, I suppose like gunmetal grey. So the centre bit was like darker, and then had the outer bit, but the outer bit had like little holes, like a pepper pot. I'd say either 6 or 8 circles on the outside, and I was just sat holding on to the handlebars, just looking straight up. I couldn't tell you how long it was there. It could have been, and I always say this, it could have been 2 minutes, it could have been 2 hours.
Wow.
Because the rule to come in then at that age was when your dinner's ready, if it starts raining, or when it gets dark. And that was it. So my mum could have just thought I was just riding round up and down the estate. I was never more than 500 yards away from the house.
Yeah, the first time I ever experienced anything like that was I was young, and we always played together as neighborhood kids. So I was across the street from our house, and we were playing wiffle ball, which is, the plastic bat and plastic ball, so we didn't bust any windows out of anybody's houses,
Yeah.
And when I looked up in the sky for whatever reason, I saw what looked exactly like the Starship Enterprise. I mean, I'm not
Wow.
kidding. I mean, exactly. And I said something to my friends, which, you know, our neighborhood kids, and they all looked up. And we all hid behind the bushes staring at this thing until finally it was just gone. We didn't see it leave.
Yeah.
We didn't. I think we were all hiding and talking to each other, you know, and every time we peeked up, you know, it was there. And then
Wow.
the last time we peeked up, it was gone. But they all saw it
Really?
too.
I was going to say, did everyone see it?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you
So
think that was a
it's-
screen?
What's that?
Do you think that was like a screen memory or like a cloaking device?
It could be.
Yeah, I don't, you know, up until that time, I don't really know if I ever saw, you know, the Star Trek. But, you know, growing up remembering it, then I think, okay, that's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah. Hmm. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was definitely different. I mean, at first I thought it was just a plane, you know, but it was just there. It wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't doing nothing. It was just right there in the sky, not moving, not doing anything, no sounds, nothing.
Nothing. How long was it there for?
Probably a minute or so. I mean, I don't really know exactly how long it was, but I mean,
Yeah.
long enough for us to dive behind the bushes at their place and keep looking up every little bit.
But you didn't hear a sound.
Nope, no sound whatsoever.
Did you
Wow,
hear a sound
same.
with yours?
Nothing.
Wow.
At first, I thought I'd heard something for me to stop and look up. So there could have been like a slight humming noise, but I didn't hear any engines because where I grew up in Manchester, we was on one of the main flight paths. So at the back of the house, it was just fields for miles. So a lot of time, if it's late at night or it was really bad weather, I'd stand at the bedroom window and just watching the planes circle, waiting to land at the airport. So I knew, obviously, growing up, what the different planes were. So I knew it wasn't a plane. And there was also an aerodrome only a couple of miles away, and they used to have an air show on every year, and they'd have the like the B-52 bomber, the red arrows and all that kind of stuff, and they'd have Concorde flying over and all that kind of stuff, Spitfires, biplanes, and what. So I knew, and at an early age, I knew a lot of the different types of aircraft, and this was like your typical flying saucer.
Wow.
I don't ever remember there being a noise coming from it.
Yes, this was my incident would have been in the early 70s. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there really wasn't much going on as far. I mean, there was commercial jets, you know, and regular planes. So, but there was nothing that looked like that whatsoever that
Right.
No.
that would even be able to tell you what it was.
No, I think I see more, like I said, the Spitfire and the biplanes because they'd practice a place called Barton Aerodrome, and they'd do a lot of practicing on the build up to the air show each year. Excuse me. So you get used to them engine noises.
Mm-hmm.
So we, like me and my brother, because I had an older brother, and we go, oh, we can hear a Spitfire, and then we'd run out and try and see where it was. And we couldn't always see it because of the trees and the houses or what have you, but we knew it was there because we could hear it. But even with, because I'd say there's a good 8 or 10 of us all around the same age that used to hang about, and I don't think any of them had any encounters like that growing up. No one ever said anything to me, but then I never said anything to anybody else. To me, it sounds stupid even now. It just felt not at the time. It felt normal. I never thought. I didn't ever think afterwards, like even a couple of hours, a couple of days after, that was weird. That was not normal. It just felt. It was an everyday occurrence, even though I knew it wasn't.
Now, in any of your incidences, have you had any missing time? Marty from the Nana Boss brings up about, you know, feeling of missing time and huge blanks.
Well, this is a strange one. So obviously, you know Jessica Jones.
Yes.
Yes.
So she's been on the show a few times, and I asked her, would she do a remote view for me? And I
Oh.
give her a couple of coordinates, one from around that time, and one from when I was telling you about the other thing that happened when I lived in Milton Keynes in Buckinghamshire. So I'll give her them two time frames, and she said there is definitely some missing time, but she couldn't tell me whether it was from that one or the one a few years ago. But I, with the stuff that happened later on in life, there was other people about. So if there had been missing time, they would have known that I wasn't there, I think. But because of this first incident when I was around 9 years old, and like you said, there's nobody else about, and I didn't have to be in as such. My parents knew I was just outside riding around on my bike. I think if there was ever any missing time, that was when it was.
Yeah,
Wow.
because my incident, being a kid, we didn't have watches on or anything, so we obviously didn't know of missing time or anything. But it did seem like, even though I think it only lasted a minute or a couple minutes, it did seem like it was an eternity lasting, a long time. At least the feeling of being scared and hiding behind seemed like, for kids anyway, we were back there for quite a long time.
Yeah, see, I didn't feel scared, nothing like that. But it's like it stopped directly above my head, and I was just looking right up. And then I remember my neck was hurting, so you bring your neck back down to like stretch it and crack it. Did that, looked back up again, nothing, gone. I'm like, and then just carried on riding my bike, like it was, and like it's like going to the shop or something. It didn't feel different to normal life. I know that doesn't make any sense, but to me it does.
Right. Yeah, I mean, everybody's experience is different. I mean, some people say they have an experience, they lose time, and then the next time they remember, it was daylight, now it's nighttime. But I've never experienced that myself, but I know other people have.
Yeah. I've not had that. I know a friend's dad, he used to go out metal detecting. And one of the guys, well, they got to know this guy who had some land, and he allowed him to go on there. And he said, if you find anything, it's yours, but if you find anything of value, then you need to cut me in, sort of thing. And he said he went there, he got there about 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's only like a 20-minute walk to where he was going across this field. And he looked at his watch, and it's like 8 o'clock. He's like, I can't have walked that in less than a minute. And then he realised it was 8 p.m. not 8 a.m. He'd lost a full 12 hours.
Wow.
And doesn't remember anything about it. Nothing at all. So yeah, that's scary.
Wow. So is there any other unidentified objects or anything that you've experienced, or just other people's stories?
No. The next, I've seen. I used to go out at night and just watch. I used to say like stars dancing in the sky, because you'd pinpoint one star and you just watch them dance about. So I remember watching a TV show or something. It's David Bowie was on it, the singer, and he was saying if you go out between, I think it's 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. and just stare at one point in the sky, you'll start seeing all these different lights moving around. Wow. And I'd just sit there and just stare. And it's like, it was amazing. It's just like watching stars dancing. So I used to do that quite a lot. But there's one, I remember it was summer, because it was blue sky, Friday afternoon, because I used to finish work early on a Friday, and driving back. And so my youngest son was only couple of years old, so my mum used to babysit while we was at work. So I'd pick him up early on a Friday, spend some time at my mum's, and this is at the same house where I'd seen the UFO when I was 9.
Oh, okay.
So I'm driving back there, and I seen this thing in the sky, but I had Jodie Cook on just over 12 months ago, and he was talking about something, and he said something, and it just triggered about what had happened.
Oh,
So I was driving down, and I just seen like what looked like a metal ball, a metal object in the sky, and then it just zipped across from left to right. It just did like an electric blue streak across the sky. It then the object and to the right of the blue streak lit up bright red. The object went through the red, and then it all closed behind it, and then got like nothing had happened. No, it was at least 2 miles away.
Wow.
now Marty
And
was
that was
asking
where-
if Jessica had any more details about the missing time from your first incident.
Not really. She didn't say so. She sent me a copy of what she'd wrote down. So I've got that, and I've laminated it just in case I ever lose it. I've got a good copy of it. Excuse me. But she couldn't pinpoint the exact moment, but she said you definitely have missing time, and you have had encounters with otherworldly beings.
Okay.
Wow.
So and that was it. But I've not. People have said about going through regression and that, and do I really want to know what actually happened?
Right.
Right.
That's the question. Do you really want to know?
Yeah. And I'm not traumatized by it. So if I have the regression, it could come out that it was worse than I imagined it to be.
Yeah.
So am I happy keeping it as it is? I think for now, yeah. I don't need to delve into it, so to speak.
Okay.
So, but
I just wanted to bring
sorry.
it up because she brought it up, and so we can go back to your second incident.
Oh yeah. So, and it wasn't until Jodie Cook came on, and he was saying about UFOs and like a portal opening and it lighting up and something going through then closing behind it, and I'm like, oh my god, that's what happened to me with the UFO on that Friday afternoon. The sky, it opened up, went through and closed behind it. It's like it didn't just vanish, it went through something.
Wow.
And that's what I truly believe, just because of what happened and how it happened. So yeah, that was something.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, how old were you when you saw that one? Just recently?
No, I wish I was about 28, so about 30 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh no, sorry, I was about. No, yeah, about between 24 and 28. So it was around, I think, 1995, 96.
Okay.
But apparently that was another years around there where there's a lot of UFO sightings around the world in the mid-90s.
Yeah, that was a pretty intensive time. Seemed like there was reports everywhere.
Yeah.
So do you feel like there's a lot of reports of UFOs over in the UK area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And apparently the place where I live, part of like Northampton, there's a place called Kettering. That's supposed to be a big UFO hotspot. And I only know of one person, two people from this area that have had any UFO encounters of any kind.
Wow.
So, and I've not really seen anything. I've seen stuff, but I couldn't say, yeah, that's definitely extraterrestrial craft or anything like that. I've seen the lights moving. It's like it could be a drone, it could light aircraft. You don't know.
Right.
So
Now, is it still pretty hush hush? Do people not really like to talk about it? Or is it more out in the open now in the UK like it is in the US?
it is now. It has been for quite a while, really, but a lot of people just either they don't believe or they refuse to believe it. But I can understand that if you've never had anything happen to you, you've never encountered anything, or you've never noticed anything, then I can understand why people don't believe it. But when you're having stuff happen to you pretty much on a regular basis, then you can't not believe it.
Yeah, because I think now, like even in the US, you know, that all this attention has brought it forward that more people are telling their stories or starting to come out and tell it, you know, and they're not being necessarily, you know, labeled as crazy or anything like that. People are more accepting now, like, okay, I want to hear what you have to say, especially since everybody, including us, have started all these podcasts. You know, people
Yeah.
like are starting to open it up more and be able to tell their stories.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why I started, because I was going out doing live investigations. I just thought I'd just go different places and see if we get anything on film. And then that was kind of like the first bit of lockdown, and we was just coming out of lockdown. Then we went straight back in, and I thought, typical. I thought I don't want to stop the channel. I've just started doing it. I've just got everything set up, ready. The website, excuse me, the Facebook group, all that kind of stuff, and it was all set, waiting for me to decide exactly what I was going to do with it all. So then I thought, right, I'll start getting guests on and interviewing people, and then kind of like. Well, just before that, I'd go on and I'd start talking about the encounters that I've had, and then doing it that way. I thought, well, if I talk about what's happened to me, hopefully other people come forward and say, "Oh, I've had that," or it might trigger a memory or something.
Exactly.
So, and it just went from there, and now 2 years later, this is where I'm at, really.
Now, Derek's asking, has the British Parliament had any hearings on UFOs like the United States Congress is doing now, or no?
Nothing, no. But I'm saying that, I don't even watch the news, so I couldn't tell you. But I've not heard anything. They're all just arguing over stupid stuff all the time, so I don't bother watching it.
Well, normally our Congress is all arguing over stupid stuff too, but I don't know why all of a sudden they're pressed about this UFO.
Right.
Yeah. The only thing that we was getting was when the Tic Tacs were getting shut down a few months back, and that was it. And the supposed Chinese balloon and spy balloon and all that.
Right.
That's pretty much it.
Now, what was that about a Welsh triangle? Somebody made a comment.
Oh yeah,
I've seen that.
Derek did.
Yeah.
About the Welsh Triangle.
Do you know anything about that?
Oh, I've heard about it, and someone, I think it's my cousin. He was looking. I was on the phone to him, and he's looking online. He went, "Well, what's the Welsh Triangle?" I'm like, "Don't know. Triangle in Wales. I really don't know." Obviously, I've heard of the Bermuda Triangle, and is it the Bridgewater Triangle?
Yeah, there's Bermuda and Bridgewater, and I mean, actually, all across the whole world, there's triangles.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's one in Alaska, there's one in Japan. I mean, they're just everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I had Kaz Clark and Gary Jones on, and they were talking. They're main key witnesses to the Penturk UFO incident in 2016. I think it was February the 15th, February the 16th. And they came on talking about that. That was only a couple of weeks ago. And they've pretty much found out that it was supposed to, they've said it was a military exercise, but because it was all conducted on private land and all these people were supposed to have been contacted for them to do this, everyone's turned around. Even like the emergency services have gone, we don't know what you're talking about. No one contacted us about anything. It's for the FOI, Freedom of Information Act. And no one's got anything. It's all pretty much, no one contacted us. No, we don't know what you're talking about. So that's probably part of it.
Yeah. So what other kind of stories are coming out of the UK? I mean, I know there's obviously, since you guys are considered the old world, for us, there's obviously paranormal and all kinds of stuff going on over there.
Well, we was talking before off air about black-eyed kids. Now, there'd been a few reports, I'd say about 8 to 10 months ago. Now, I'd not heard anything. It was one of the lads at work who's come out on some of the investigations with me, like called Nathan. And he said there's like 5 different accounts over the last couple of weeks. And I tried looking for them online, but I couldn't find anything. So I don't know how true that was. But then at the same time, I'd heard that there was Slenderman sightings as well. But then there was nothing to back it up. There's no video or photographs or anything like that.
Do they explain how they're dressed over there? Because I know how people have explained, they look kind of shaggy and ragged clothes over here.
Like ill-fitting clothing. It's like either too big or it's too short. And there's always at least 2 of them. So
pretty.
Thanks, William.
The weird thing is with them, see, I don't class them as vampires, but the old vampire law of they ask if they can come, that they have to be invited in.
Right.
Yeah.
So is it some kind of new age vampire? And they're just disguising themselves as a child to make you feel like obliged to do something for them.
The weird thing is that they're described as like children, which for us it'd be the depression, and rags and street clothes. I guess it'd be paupers for you guys, or the street cleaners and that kind of clothing. They don't look like they're from the right time sometimes.
Yeah, the wrong era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating that you have them over there also, because I don't know if I've ever heard of any reports of black-eyed children in other countries. Wow.
See, I've only heard of them in the US and the UK.
Wow.
Mainly in the US.
Are they the same kind of stories, like you said, that you have to invite them in? We have stories here where they show up on people's front porches, or they start talking, or the kids, their neighborhood kids are talking to them, and then they want to come in the house, with them, and
and they want to use a phone or use a bathroom.
Yeah.
And they need to contact the parents to come and pick them up.
Wow.
It's strange. I know if you ever knocked on this door, it won't be getting opened.
Because all the reports here in the U.S., most of those people developed serious illnesses after encounters with the black-eyed children.
Yeah, I remember there's an elderly couple that let him in, and the guy, he ended up dying. I think he ended up with leukemia or something.
Oh, wow.
And his wife, she was really ill, like getting really bad headaches and that. And I know she survived, but she was ill for a very, very long time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's strange. I don't know how to explain black-eyed children.
Yeah.
But I do, so like that you just put up again, vampires dressed from centuries ago. I do think that it's some sort of vampire type creature.
Yeah, they obviously have that evil sense to them. I mean, people say that, in their stories, that they felt that presence, and The one story I remember specifically was a guy answered the door and the black-eyed children was there. And the same thing,
Yeah.
they wanted to come in, use the phone, whatever. And his dog, who normally just runs to the front door and just barks viciously, it ran to the door and then put its tail between its legs and hid.
Yeah.
So
They know.
so the dog could sense something's not right.
Yep. But it's what are they? That's the thing, we don't know.
Right.
It's just speculation, isn't it? And it's guesswork.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's obviously I don't know, some kind of dark entity, or like you said, maybe vampires, or maybe
Another hybrid type. Who knows?
Yeah. That's it. Could be anything.
Right. I mean, they could be cloning, just experimental cloning. Who knows?
Yeah, because that's one of the things that you say when these, I don't know if you want shapeshifters or skinwalkers, whatever you want to call them, that when they try and replicate a human, you never quite get it right, and it always tends to be the eyes that are the part that isn't complete.
That makes sense. Wow.
And as well, you've all heard the saying that the eyes are the windows to the soul. So if they have no soul, then it is going to be black.
And the weird thing is that they disappear just as fast as they come, because a lot of people don't really notice them, walking down the street. They just show up all of a sudden. They're on your porch,
just
or next
there.
to your car. And then the next time you look around, they're gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah.
So there's some kind of maybe dimensional aspect to them.
I'm just glad the reports are starting to slow down.
Yeah.
Or
No,
we're
I've
just
not
not
heard
hearing about
it.
Yeah, we're
and
just
I'm
not
happy.
hearing about them.
I'm happy with that.
them.
Definitely.
So is that in just one area that you heard of these reports, or is it kind of being spread out a little bit?
The reports that I heard were the ones in Cannock Chase in Staffordshire, just outside Lichfield. And that's another place that we're going doing. Well, we're doing a meet-up during the day, and then there's a few of us that are staying over and doing through the night investigations. So if you don't hear from me after the 10th of September, something bad happened. No, we should be all right.
No shows this week.
You'll have to leave us a contact number so we can get a hold of somebody and go looking for you.
Well, there's at least 4 of us that are going to be there through the night, and we've all got, there's going to be 2 vehicles going, and taking not all the equipment that you use for investigating, but the ones what I'm going to use for that particular type of investigation, because you've got the old German cemetery. So I've been there during the day, but that's the area where there's a lot of dogman sightings.
Wow.
So even during the day, we was off work for the week, me and the missus. So I said, do you want to go to Cannock? She knows about it, because obviously talk about this, but it's not really her thing. But she supports me in that, and happy, and we're not doing anything else, she'll come along. So I'm doing a live stream, only like half an hour, and walking around the cemetery. Now there's only us 2 there. It's probably, I think it's a Wednesday afternoon or something, about 2 o'clock. The weather, I think it was January, and it was cold, but it wasn't damp or anything like that. It wasn't wet, it had been raining, but there's nobody else about. And that was strange on its own. And then as we come out of there, we drove down and we went past the tower where the old airbase used to be. So I just thought, that's where I'm going next.
Cool.
So
now, where are the dogman sightings? You mentioned dogmen.
So they're around the German cemetery. So these are like prison POWs, prisoners of war. So there's a lot of the dogman sightings around that area. So I'm kind of, I want to go, but I don't really want to see one, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't really want to see a dog man either. I mean, the subject's interesting, and I know,
Yeah.
you know, like we talked earlier, you know, you want to believe in all this stuff, and I believe everybody's stories, you know, what they experience, but I don't know if I really want to see one face to face.
Right.
No. If I do, I want to be going. I want to be seeing it in the mirror and
Or
I'm going the other
maybe
direction
far
about
away.
90.
Maybe if it's like way, you know, miles away, and I think that's a dog man. Okay, that's good enough.
Yeah. I'll be happy with that. But
So
but it's just something. It's been on my bucket list for quite a while, and it wasn't. Not that I've not had the opportunity. I've not had the opportunity to do it with a certain group of people. So now we have. To me, it's going to be a lot better.
So do you have any stories that you can tell about dogmen? What are people reporting?
Oh, all sorts. There's, like I said, a lot of them around the cemetery. So this is the thing. Are they guardians of the cemetery? Are they protecting the soldiers from I think it's the First World War. I'm sure it was the First World War. But one of my theories was because obviously, no, sorry, it was the Second World War. Because of what Hitler was doing and all the experiments and that, was he creating some sort of hybrid? And these soldiers that was killed on UK soil and they were buried in the cemetery, was the person buried some sort of experiment, and then this dogman hybrid thing has come looking for where their actual body is buried, and that's what they're doing? Or are they there to protect the dead as some sort of guardian?
See, I've thought that too. I've thought, okay, either somebody's practicing black magic and they're connected to this dog man or whatever this entity is. So when they die, they gravitate towards where their body is, and you know, just like you hear a regular canine, you know, when their master dies, they
go
they want to lay on a grave and they want to stay there. They feel that presence still.
Yeah. But no, I thought that for quite a while now, just with the stories that I've heard from like the Second World War and what Germany was doing with the scientists and all that and what they was trying to create. Did they do some DNA splicing and mix matching part dog, part human and using them as some sort of super soldier?
Yeah, I've heard stories that they used them for World War II, you know, used them as soldiers.
So there's always that talk around here in the US, you know, in the community about, you know, dogman was a scientific experiment. Now, whether there's actually flesh and blood, just dogman, and then there's the ones that they experimented on, or did they create the dogman? You know, there's still that kind of going back and forth on that.
We'll never know.
Were they here before us?
Yeah. See, I think Bigfoot was an indigenous person or indigenous people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you hear so many stories, especially from like the natives of whichever country, and this goes back thousands of years, of these hairy bipedal creatures that roam through the forests and fields and whatever, obviously mainly at night, and they'd leave offerings for them so that they wouldn't attack the villagers. So it's I
mean, obviously, you know, this like UFOs and aliens have been here for forever. I mean, way before our time, before our grandparents. I mean, there's just encounters and stories of them all the way into the biblical times, even before that, probably. And so,
Oh yeah,
you hear about, Bigfoot and Dogman. There's stories going way back with them. And then you have in the UK, where Frankenstein and werewolves and vampires, all those stories came out of. So all these cryptids, I think, have been here forever as far as we're concerned.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But then, are they just out of our frequency and that's why we can't see them all the time? Or do they travel through portals? Or are they it live in inner earth through the cave systems and underground tunnels? When I say inner earth, I don't mean that is like they've got the sun and the clouds and everything like what a lot of people believe inner earth to be.
Hollow
I mean,
Earth.
like they just live underground.
Yep.
Whether we've pushed them there or they've gone to get away from the humans or for whatever reason, or that they was already there prior to that.
Well,
and it's just how they've adapted.
And orbs are associated with a lot of these things also. Are they traveling around and, instead of going through a portal, are they turning into an orb with their energy and taking off? And that's why we can't see them with our naked eye.
Yeah. Yeah, if they've got the ability to do that and that much more advanced than us, I know what I'd be doing. I wouldn't be going out, getting in my car, feeling it up, taking 2 hours to drive somewhere. I'd be changing shape of energy and just go straight there.
Yeah, I want to fly around in an orb. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
definitely.
Me and Jane, talk about it all the time, and I know a lot of people in the podcast talk about it, about how Bigfoot's dimensional and Dogman can be dimensional, and I mean, just all these cryptids. I mean, it makes sense that they're dimensional. I mean, but they're also supposedly, like what you were just saying about inner Earth or hollow Earth. That there's reptilians or aliens that have been here and been on the planet for a long, long time.
Yeah,
and they just live under the ground.
And that's it. It's like unless we meet one and ask the questions, we're never going to know.
Is there a lot of caves over in the UK area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Most of them are around the coast. From what I can gather, there's quite a lot in Wales. I know there's some up in Scotland, but there is quite a lot of cave systems. Apparently, there are cave systems that you can get from in the UK and pretty much get all the way to Turkey, and far Eastern Europe. It goes under the sea and you can travel for miles. But then, would you want to do that? Because unless you've got a map, you could be there forever.
Wow.
Trying to find your way back out.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine all those cave systems going all over.
Right.
I mean, I know both the U.S. and UK obviously have always been digging for coal and all these mines and everything. But when I think of inner Earth, I think of something different besides that stuff. That these are like caves that go way down below even what they are at.
Probably do. It wouldn't surprise me.
With all these caves by the coast, any signs of like pterodactyl or anything like that flying around?
No, well, as I was saying off air, there was no. It was where I was living at the time. I said it was Milton Keynes. It's 40 miles from London, so it's probably I think it's around about a 2-hour drive to the nearest coast, which is like Norfolk or Suffolk. Do you want me to tell that story?
Yeah, go right ahead.
To go into that. Right, so it was middle of summer. I know, because it was going dark about 10:30, 11 o'clock. Still twilight, you could still see, but proper dark like it is now outside here. It was about 11 o'clock, and I was sat in the garden. I said to you before, I'd just go out watching the stars, and I had my telescope set up. So I'm just watching what was going on, see if you could pick anything up. Because a couple of times, if you stood in the back garden, if you stood in a particular spot, the back of the houses were higher than the front, and then the way the trees were, you could block out all the artificial light, so you could get a really good picture of the sky. And I think once there, I managed to see the Milky Way. And I was trying to take photos of it, and nothing was coming out. That was before smartphones, so it was just a normal mobile. It was awful pictures. It was just black, nothing on it. So I really want a photograph of this as proof that I've seen it. And I was just doing that. So I turned around to come back into the house. And it's a clear night, obviously, because there's no point trying to star watch when there's clouds and that. So as I turned, I just caught something in the corner of my right eye, and I looked up, and it was like a dark brown tan colour, and it was just above the line of the back of the houses. So it's like the houses were there's no gap between them. It's just 8 houses in a row. Excuse me. So the back of the house was probably about 35 to 40 foot high. So the roof, it wasn't your typical roof like that. It's just one that went. So that's the back, and then the front was lower. And I just watched this. What I believed at the time was a dragon glide across the sky until I couldn't see it.
Wow.
Like I said, I had my phone in my hand, and this is at the time. This was smartphone. I think the iPhone 6 or iPhone 7 was out.
All right.
So it was quite fairly recent, say in the last 10 years. And I just watched it, and I'm like, oh my God, I've just seen a dragon. And it was one of them, I look away, look back up, and it was still there. So I did that once, but I'm not taking my eyes off this now. I just watched it till it had completely gone outside. Probably lasted 15, 20 seconds till I couldn't see it. Ran in the house, straight onto YouTube and Google and that, and typing in dragon, and just watching all the. I was like, nope, not that one. Nope, not that one. And this sounds so stupid, but what made it authentic for me is, at the end of the tail, it's got that little diamond, like what a lion has, like that fluff ball at the end of its tail. I could see that. So I didn't see the face because it's like at an angle, and I was looking like at the underbelly like that, like say a 20-degree angle. So I could see the back legs like that.
Wow.
And the wings, the shape of the wings was like big bat wings with like the little hands, claws, like that go part way. And I was looking at all these different bat wings as well, and could not find anything that resembled it. But if it's all right with you, Gerald, I can send you a picture.
Okay. Yeah.
This is not a photograph, but it's one that I found on. I found it on Google. Oh no, it was on Facebook. So yeah, so I'd been looking. I was looking for weeks, and then I ended up getting distracted and looking at other stuff, and it's like Black-Eyed Kids and vampires and Slender Man and all that all the creepypasta stuff was coming out. So I'm looking at all that kind of stuff. And then I found, I'll send you 2 images. Sorry, 1 second. Right, they're sent to you. I've sent them on Messenger. If you want to add them, you can. It's entirely up to you. I'm just thinking, I've seen a dragon. And then obviously searching, and then I'm looking at other stuff and then getting distracted and thinking about other things, and then it kind of like just goes out my mind. Then it's about, so that was one. So it's about 5 years later, it was. And I'm looking at just going, just flick through Facebook like with newspaper or magazine, and come to this picture, and I just dropped, sat down. I was stood up and just sat in the chair. I'm like, oh my, I swore, but I won't repeat it. Oh my God. I could not believe what I was looking at. I'm like, that is what I seen. Exactly the same. And like I said, I know these are CGI or painted or whatever, or they're not real, put it that way. But whoever's done that, and it was what I believe to be a pterodactyl. And so, one of my friends says, this is the best bit, sorry, one of my friends, was it not a kite? As in, on a string? I'm like, if that was a kite, someone must have had a rope about 2 inches thick and made it fly about a half a mile across the sky that I could see. So how could they have flown it? Because where the flight path was, they'd gone through houses, schools, industrial area, over main roads, over a dual carriageway, a lot. It wasn't. But then I was thinking, was it a drone? Didn't make any noise. There was no lights on it, nothing. You can hear a drone hundreds of yards away, can't you? It's that buzzing noise that you can hear. But it didn't flap its wings, didn't move its head, didn't make any noise. It just flew in a perfect, what looked like a perfect straight line till it was out of sight.
Wow.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you saw the wings flap or it just
No,
soared.
nothing. And that's what
soaring.
And that's what kind of made me think, well, but was it really a dragon or a pterodactyl? It didn't flap its wings. And I did my first podcast interview where I spoke about that. And the guy that was interviewing me turned around and said, he's had a lot of people contact him about pterodactyl sightings. And every single one of them has said they never flap the wings. They get into a thermal drift and stay in it. Because they're supposed to be cold-blooded creatures, aren't they? So obviously the more energy they use, they're going to burn themselves out a lot quicker.
Wow.
Yeah. So you think it's not a Thunderbird sighting? It's definitely, I mean, I'm looking at the pictures. Like for some reason I can't get them to download onto the system that we're using for StreamYard.
Do you want me to hold it up to?
Well, I have the pictures. I just can't. I just don't know. We're on a different system we're using, so I don't know how to transfer them over to the computer we're using right now.
If you go on overlay and add to overlay, that's what I try and do. I can hold them up to the screen if you want.
Yeah, can we share?
Do you want me to do this?
Yeah.
Right, so the head, from what I can see from the head and the tail, were the only two things that resembled it from that image.
Yeah, we can see it.
The wings were nothing like that, and the feet were nothing like that, and it didn't have that fin under its neck. But the head and obviously that bit of the tail were identical. But then on this picture, now see how the head's slightly different on this one?
Right.
But the feet weren't as long and the tail wasn't as long as that. But the shape of the wings were, see how you've got the little claws or hooks or hands
right.
It was them wings. So it was a cross between them two. And judging from where I was stood to where it was in the house, to where it was above the house, sorry, and the size of it, I reckon the wingspan was at least 16, 18 foot. And from the tip of its mouth or its beak, or whatever you want to call it, to the tip of its tail, must have been at least 24 foot. So it wasn't little.
Wow.
And that is what I seen. And even now, I still can't believe I've been that lucky to see something. And a couple of people have said, did you not try and get its attention? Well, I didn't. And even thinking about it, it wouldn't have been the best move I've ever made.
Right.
Yeah, something that big flying and could swoop in and probably pick you up.
Yeah, snack.
It was 20 sizes bigger than me, but that was just it. Yeah. And like I said, I forgot about seeing it. And then that first picture that had shown, that was one that I found on Facebook. Excuse me. And it's like, I had to sit down. I was just sat there staring at this image, massive smile on my face, because like, that is what I've seen.
You know, there's Thunderbird reports here in the U.S., you know, and, you know, obviously the Native Americans have always talked about Thunderbirds. But then you get, you know, here recently, Jason McLean, you know, from Texas Front Porch.
Yes.
He talked about a sighting and described it pretty well, you know, just kind of like the image that you just described and showed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like I said, it was like a dark tanned, like a saddle leather, that colour, because it was just visible. It was just visible, but because I'd been looking at the night sky anyway, my eyes had adjusted. So I think that's why I seen it as I turn around to go back in the house. But then I think now, how much stuff is there in the sky at night that isn't lit up that we don't know anything about? It could be there now, flying around in circles, doing cartwheels in the sky, and we just don't know because we're not looking.
Right.
Was it close enough for you to hear any of the wings in the air movement or any sound from it at all?
If it had flapped its wings, I would have heard it.
So it was just gliding then.
Wow.
I'd say it's less than 100 foot away.
Oh,
wow.
Because like I said, I was judging it the height of the house to where it would have been because it was at the front of the house, but because I was looking up at an angle, I'd say no more than 100 foot.
That's amazing.
And if I'd have screamed or done something, it would have seen me. And yeah, I'd have been in the house and probably still be there now.
Yeah, so we live in Illinois, and I grew up my whole life in Illinois, and I remember that Thunderbird trying to pick up the boy in the 70s.
I watched that a couple of months ago because one of his granddad and his mum that was there, and they'd been out playing in the yard and that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one.
Then what was it within the last year or two that we had somebody tell us that they've been seeing dragons, and I'm assuming they're describing the same thing you are out there on the East Coast flying around.
Right.
Yep. But then there's another incident. Now, I never seen this, and this was around or not long after I'd seen that portal thing, whatever that was. We'd gone up to, there's a place called Rivington, just outside Manchester, in a place called Bolton. And there's an old quarry, you've got reservoir there, you've got forestry, and it's like hills. Just the Pennine Moors, West Pennine Moors. So we was getting back in the car, we've been walking about, and a friend went, "Did you just see that?" Oh, no, what? He went, "It looked like a cow with wings." I'm like, what?
A cow
that
with
don't even
wings.
make sense. She went, it wasn't a cow, but it was, the body was the size of a cow, and it dropped down off this dry stone wall to where this old quarry was. And I went, "Why don't you go and have a look?" I went, "You seen it, you go and have a look." The drop was only about 5-6 foot, but then the grass and that went down and dropped into like a bit of a ravine and what have you. And but I said like a cow with wings, like, it wasn't a flying cow. The size of it, its body was cow size.
Wow.
I'm like, no, I'm good. I'll leave that.
The only time we see flying cows around here is when the tornadoes come through.
I'm gonna say when there's a tornado.
Cows.
Yeah, it was just like, no, if you've seen that, I believe it. And that person they've never ever said anything like that before or since. I don't speak to them now, but I was friends with him for a few years, and they'd never mentioned anything similar to it. And it's not the sort of thing they'd just come out with for the sake of it.
So you think she saw a dragon, but she kind of described it as a cow with wings?
Yeah, and this was daylight. This was like mid-afternoon, like 1, 2 p.m. at the latest.
Wow.
So, yeah. I don't know what that was.
That's crazy. But I mean, there's so many descriptions, even when people try to describe a Bigfoot or a dog man or parts of the U.S. have a skunk ape, or there's just so many little nuances of all these cryptids.
But my take on that is, you're trying to remember something that's happened. So not only are you trying to remember the timeline of what went on, you're trying to remember what it looks like where you was, what the weather was like, all the different conditions and the environment and all that. So I think the hardest bit is to remember exactly what the thing looked like. And your mind just gives you, it's like with pareidolia, when you see the faces in trees and clouds and all that, your brain is trying to put an image to what it is you're looking at. So I think that's a lot of misidentification from what it actually looks like to what you're actually looking at. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
And you're in just such awe and shock a lot of times when you see something. So it's like you're not really thinking of, okay, what color is it? Does it have fur? Does it have scales? Does it have, how big is it compared to everything else? You're trying to remember this after the fact. And you don't, if it's something you've never seen before, never heard of, you don't have a reference to tell people what it is or what it looks like. You're just trying to describe it the best you can.
Yeah, totally agree. But like with the pterodactyl type thing, the only reason was that is because I've seen it for so long. I watched it until that was out of sight. It wasn't like when I've seen, I suppose, spirits or ghosts or that, it's only been a couple of seconds. They've like blipped in and blipped out, so you don't get a good description of them. So
yeah, I mean, it's just like they say, when you have a car accident or a bank robbery, and you ask the people how to describe them, and nobody describes everybody the same. To the police,
no,
they just
completely different. Yeah, because you can't in the moment. I think that's what I was trying to say before.
Yeah.
So you're not thinking about. You're not thinking about the detail of everything. It's only because of what I do that I know my next instinct is, right, I need to remember the time, the date, the weather, everything about it. So I've got like a diary of what happened at that moment in time. But for someone that doesn't do this, they're just thinking of what is going on. Which I still do that as well now. I've had other things where I've just, this isn't normal. This really isn't normal.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, just like you did, you went and tried to find pictures on Google. I mean, we do that
Yeah.
stuff too. Or we try to make a movie reference because usually a lot of times people go, okay, I know what that looks like in that movie. So then you kind of try to describe it off of that.
Yeah. And it's just, it's difficult. It really is. I'll tell you about another one, and this has got a bit of a thing to what you was just saying, Gerald. So I had a lot of stuff happen when I lived in Milton Keynes. Without going into too much detail, the relationship I was in at the time wasn't very good, so there's a lot of negativity. So I think most of that energy was drawing a lot of stuff that was going on. Now this one was in a shopping centre, and there's a few of us there, and we stood just outside McDonald's. It was Saturday afternoon, middle of summer, and it was really, really busy. So rather than going into McDonald's and standing there numbing and ahhing on what we was getting to eat, we thought we'll stand outside. It's one of them. It didn't have doors. It's where the windows are open. You can just walk in at any point. It was like that. So we stood there chatting, and no one could decide what they wanted. And I got distracted, and I could see a tall female, pure white hair and skin with blue, like, obviously, I'm guessing you've seen Game of Thrones.
Yes.
The is it Nightwalkers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the crystal blue coloured eyes.
Oh yeah.
That's what colour this woman's eyes were. But she must have been, I'd say, at least 6.5, 7 foot tall.
Oh wow.
Wow.
But her skin, there's no exaggeration in this or anything. It was perfect skin.
Well, that sounds like
pure white.
A Nordic alien.
Yeah. And I was just like, Joe, not in a trance, but I'd zoned out from everything else that was going on. And she was stood with two guys. Have you heard of the hairy bikers? They're chefs, cooks.
Oh.
They go around, they travel around on motorbikes, and they go around cooking in different places and that, and they just do it out on the street and what have you. Now, they look like them. So there's two middle-aged guys with glasses, beards, quite big built. And it was like completely out of place, all three of them. But they were stood talking to either one or two other people. And I'm just like, and I'm thinking, this isn't right. There's something not normal about this. But never made eye contact with any of them. And then one of the people that was with said something to me. So I turned round. I think they decided what I was having to eat. And this only took like probably less than a minute. It sounds a lot longer, but it wasn't. And when I turned back, all three of them had gone. Or I couldn't see them. Now, where I was stood, so we're stood there, the exit and entrance to the shopping centre's there, McDonald's was there, and the bank was there, and there was a food bit there. So we were stood right on a junction. Now, if they would walked in any direction, we would have still been able to see them. And I'm literally spinning round on my heel trying to find this 7 foot tall, blonde haired woman that had come out of nowhere and gone. Now, I told Albert Rosales this story, and he asked me to send it over as an email, so I did that, and he was putting it on his Facebook group, and he was asking for a picture of what it looked like, and I'm like, nope, not like that. And even though all these pictures were Nordics, not one of them was similar to what he was sending me. So it's the same sort of thing. So I said, like, there's one, the only picture I could find was one of Jamie Lee Curtis that she had really short cropped hair. I said it was like that, but it was brilliant white. You know, like you get the proper like white ice cream, and it's like it was that colour, same as the skin, no blemishes, nothing, and that's why it stood out more than anyone else. And then the blue eyes, so it was the same colour blue as what you used in your logo with the Midwest.
All right,
it was like that, that blue.
Wow.
Yeah, it sounds like a Nordic to me, but I mean, we don't really have a picture really to know what they really look like.
No.
But,
so
like Crater Lake here in the U.S., there's a lot of 411 missing incidents and people killing themselves going into the lake. There's all kinds of weird stuff going on, but people say that Nordic-looking people are there before they disappear.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's strange. That really is.
And it's just like kind of what you talked about, they're fair complected, not a blemish, they're tall, they're
wow.
Just like you would picture a Swedish or a Norwegian, the blonde hair.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Just like you said, though, the eyes are different, though. They're that piercing blue.
And it's the height of her as well. I've not seen many blokes that tall, let alone a female.
Yeah.
But there's no eye contact made. But whether or not they picked up that I was literally staring right at them, I'd switched off from everything else. So whether they picked up on that, and then when I turned, they'd, maybe shapeshift, vanished. I don't know what happened to him. I just didn't see him again.
Well, I'm assuming if they are, what we're describing, Nordic or dimensional or whatever, they know when people recognize them or are paying attention to them. They feel that vibration or frequency to them, so they know when to get. Yeah,
that's what Albert was saying. So it's like, that'd make a lot of sense. But it's had so much stuff go on. All I can tell you is what's happened. Most of the time, it's like I don't know what it was.
Right.
I can tell you what I think it was or what it looked like, but to what it actually was, I have no idea.
Right.
No, that's the right attitude. Yeah, because we're not experts. Nobody really knows. We're just speculating.
Yeah. But even with the pterodactyl, was it really a pterodactyl or was it a cloaking device? It could have been something else behind that.
Right.
But that is what I seen.
Yeah, it could have been.
It looked like a pterodactyl.
Projecting an image to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we say that all the time. We don't know, what we only have so much that we can see with our naked eye. We only have such a range that we can see, and evidently dimensional people and even like Sasquatch can project stuff to your mind, so they could probably make you see whatever you want to see or they want you to see.
Yeah, something that makes you feel comfortable, I suppose. Or something you recognize.
Right. Yeah, as soon as you started describing that person, though, I automatically thought of Nordic.
Well, maybe Arcturians. I think Arcturians are also blonde and blue-eyed. I think that's how you pronounce them. Arcturians, something like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So
yeah, but that was very, very odd.
Wow.
But it's like there was hundreds of people about, and no one else seemed to pick up on it.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's the interesting part. Why wasn't anybody else paying attention to them?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So, and them gone. So I'll never know.
And
Hmm.
a lot of high strings that's going on.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, I'd go shopping. I used to live literally over the road from the shopping centre, and I'd go there quite a lot because it's just more convenient than going anywhere else. And never, in the 15 years that I lived, the 12 years that I lived in that part of the country, never seen anything before or since in any part of that. But Albert was saying that he got a lot of reports that there's been a lot of Nordic type people seen in shopping centres. Apparently that's quite common. So I've not heard that before either.
Yeah, well, it's too bad we don't have something to reference them by, or if you had more people with you that noticed them and said, no, they had the blue eyes and they were 7 foot tall, or what did they see? Maybe they saw something totally different that
Could be.
But the thing is, there was 5 of us, but that was another thing. I didn't even question the people that I was with as to whether they seen them, even though it wasn't. I knew it wasn't normal. It felt normal.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what's
So-
normal?
Paranormal's normal, and
Yeah,
normal's not
paranormal.
so
Yeah.
much. But I think because I've had that much go on, it's like, oh, it's just that. Do you know what I mean? And you kind of get used to it to a certain degree.
Yeah, and if we're only getting these little glimpses, what
Mhm.
aren't we seeing? What aren't we able to
I
see?
know. Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing then. Imagine what else is there that we have no idea of.
Yeah,
Of course, maybe we don't want to see them either.
true.
Yeah. Bigfoot, Dogman, sorry. And the reptilians.
I mean, we always hear these stories, about the dimensions and, the veils getting thinner, and people are seeing on both sides, whether we're seeing into their world or they're coming into ours,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready to actually see it full time, 24 hours a day of, everything around me, what's actually, okay, are they here in this dimension with us, but we just can't see them because we don't have that perception? Or, I mean,
But then-
is there demons
Yeah.
right here next to me, or is there angels right here next to me?
Wow.
I don't
But
know
then
if I want to
you-
see that 24/7.
Yeah, but do
Probably
you not think though that when the veil thins, shall we say, that when we're seeing something, what we might think is a ghost or a spirit, we're looking at that, and that's looking back at us thinking, what am I looking at? I ask this question quite a lot. Are they reacting the same way we are? And
Right.
who's that? Why is that person who's dressed completely different to how we dress and look different? And then next minute they've gone because it thickens again.
Now you hear stories of them actually looking back at you like, uh-oh, she sees me. So
Yeah.
maybe they are just as shocked.
Yeah, it could just be you both in that time shift at the same point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're looking at us thinking we're spirits or ghosts, and we're looking at them thinking they're ghosts and spirits.
Yeah. And if there's only certain, I suppose, dimensional shifts that happen on certain timelines, because a lot of it, I know it's thing on Facebook with the memes and that. Why do we all never see ghosts in Victorian clothing? Why do you not see them in hoodies and baseball caps? But then, could it be that time shift is the only bit that's thinner for us than it is for any of the others?
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, we always say line. Doesn't mean it's a straight line. It
Oh,
could
no.
be wavy lines that come in at a point, go out, come in at a point, go out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, could completely cross over, and
Yeah.
that's where the cross point is,
Mm-hmm.
where it's all happening.
What a strange world we live in. It's getting more strange.
Yes, definitely. And the more questions you ask, the less answers you get. I found that.
Yeah, this one I try to figure something out or think, okay, maybe this kind of explains it. Then something else happens, like, well, there that goes.
Yeah. Well, I used to be like dead set on a certain theory or, so a certain theory. It's like, it's got to be that. Then someone else will give you a story or an encounter that somebody else has had. It's like, well, that's gone out the window. I don't believe that anymore. And my perception of everything would change every day.
Oh yeah.
It'd never stay the same.
Every time we watch a podcast or have a guest like you on, we take little bits and pieces from what you say and try to add it to what we believe or what we think makes sense to try to make a bigger picture out of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we're not saying anything we believe is right, but it's the only thing that makes sense to us right at this moment.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like a giant jigsaw, but you haven't
Mm-hmm.
got any of the pieces, and
Yep.
you've just got to put them in where you think they belong.
Then to find out that my jigsaw puzzle is actually 3-dimensional and
Yeah.
And then it's got bits in the side as well. Yeah, that sounds about right. But there's another one. So this is what I think it was. Someone told me Tex was talking about it, and BMR Rob about. Oh no, sorry, it was Barry Littleton.
Mm.
About he came on the show. He came on with Jessica, then he came on his own, and he was talking about the trees, using trees as portals.
Yes. Yes.
Now, I'd been thinking about that for a few days, and it was constantly. I couldn't think of anything else. So you know when like they go out and they're doing the wood knocks, trying to communicate with the Bigfoot. Now, my thought was, what if they're not doing the wood knocks to communicate? What if they're doing the wood knocks to see what vibration or frequency that tree is running at? And if that tree can be used as a portal or some sort of energy shifting device, and that's what the wood knocks are. That would make more sense than communicating,
Yeah.
because most people I spoke to, because Rob was telling about his Bigfoot encounter when he was out on the lake, he was saying that used mind speak. Now, if they can use mind speak, why would they be knocking on trees to communicate with each other?
right.
Mm-hmm.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
We were me and Jane, the same time that we heard Jessica and Barry talk about, they always disappear behind trees, so trees are like portals, or there's portals connected to trees. And we started thinking along the same lines as you about the knocking on the wood. Maybe they're activating the portal, maybe they're waking up the elementals that are
On the inside.
the tree spirits that are in there, and they use them to transport, going into trees.
Seeing what trees are active and which aren't, because maybe the energy shifts from tree to tree. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but that would make so much more sense than
Right.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Doesn't make any
Exactly.
sense whatsoever. That
because there's all the reports, obviously, that 1 minute Sasquatch or whatever's there, then the next minute they're gone, and it's usually when they go behind a tree, then they go around the tree and they can't find them no more. So obviously the tree and a portal and Sasquatch would go hand in hand somehow.
Or a tree trunk. People have seen, that tree trunk just stood up and walked away.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've heard that before. But then, like we were saying earlier on, with the Native Americans and Native people to whatever land, that the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, whatever you want to call them, have been part of the land. And I suppose they are as well, because they're all very spiritual. So it's all to do with natural energies. So if they're all part of that land, then they're going to have a direct connection to the trees, to the ground, and everything else that's going on. So if they've been doing that for thousands of years, or even hundreds of years, it doesn't even have to be that long, really. As long as they find that connection and it works, then why would they not do that?
Yep. I mean, there's everything. We always say everything's always connected, whether it's cryptids or paranormal or UFO or whatever. I mean, there's always that bits and pieces that are all similar but yet different. But I mean, you get into dimensional. I mean, that just throws everything out. It's just like it's an open field. I mean, you can start imagining all kinds of things.
Yeah, it's true though. It's like, because I believe like Bigfoot, and I suppose more so Bigfoot and the Fae in that is more supernatural than paranormal. I know there's not a big difference between the two, but I think more people associate paranormal to ghosts and spirits and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas the supernatural is a more intriguing stuff. Like you said, how Bigfoot vanished and the missing 411 and UFOs. I know it's all pretty much the same thing, but it's just the it's like it's been stereotyped, hasn't it? Really, more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, once again, you know, you got to throw that in the unknown file. We're not going to know, I don't think,
No.
Right.
but I mean, we tend to lean towards, you know, that the Sasquatch is using elementals, whether they're tree spirits, rock spirits. I mean, they're all connected with Earth, and we're assuming that, like you just said, we talked about earlier, that Sasquatch or Bigfoot is really an indigenous person or people
Yeah.
to this. So they might know how to use the Earth and the frequencies and energy of the Earth to go wherever, be dimensional, become a tree, be part of a tree. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you know?
Well, this is another thing, and this was one of the first questions that I asked when I started doing the channel. I don't know if you guys have, but have you ever heard of the tree people? I know tree people are called Ents, but has anyone? Because I was born in the early 70s, and I remember someone telling me about the tree people. It wasn't a TV show. I think it was a family member that was telling me about them. And there's saying like tree people exist, and the people are the spirits that live in the trees. And the person that was they weren't doing it to try and scare me. It didn't scare me, but you know, when obviously you tell kids about stuff that exists, and as you get older, you find out that it doesn't. It wasn't like that. It was like these tree people, and they live in the trees, and that's why woods and forests were alive, and with all the animals and that, with deer and rabbits and all that kind of stuff. And no one else had ever heard of these tree people or tree spirits.
Wow.
And it's just something that's always stuck with me, that I've always believed in. So whether they meant like it was a fae or Bigfoot or whatever, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Because I can't even remember the person that told me. I just kind of think that it would be a family member that would have done that.
Yeah, because you know, we think of the fae or elementals, not necessarily a fairy or a fae, but an elemental that's specific for the trees, and there's one specific for the rocks. And there's, you know, like there's water spirits, you know, the sprites. So there's all different kind of elementals that are part of nature, and you know, that's what we think that Sasquatch is using, because if they've been here long enough on Earth, then they probably know about all this stuff.
Yeah. Suppose befriended them or used them, not in a bad way, but it was like helping each other out. The way, I don't know, suppose like birds, because you get crows and magpies and all that. You don't really see you do see some species of birds fighting, but the majority of them, like sparrows and starlings and all that, they're all like flying around together and eating together and what have you. So my guess it'd be something very similar to that, helping each other out, or just living side by side without any drama, I suppose.
Right. I'm assuming that they're beneficial to each other, however their thing works together.
Yeah, they can help each other out in whatever way.
Well, we're past the hour and a half. We can keep going if you want, or we can end it here, and maybe some other time we can have a part 2. I know it's late on your end.
It's entirely up to you guys. I've got 7 more days off work, so I'm not in a rush to go anywhere. It's up to you. It's just that it's awkward time for me to come on, because obviously we're working.
Right.
Yeah. So if you want me to stay on for a few more minutes, or you can end it, whatever you decide.
Well, if you got something else you'd like to share, I mean, we're not going anywhere. It's early for us.
Yeah, it's 1:30 in the morning for you.
Yeah, that's fine. I've been to bed later on the school night before now, so I think I can manage. I'll give you this one more thing that happened. So this was when, again, I was living in Milton Keynes, and it was the same house where I'd seen the prehistoric bird fly over. So I was in the bed. So it's first. There's only 2 floors. So it's the first floor, and it's probably the bottom of the bedroom window. I'd say was probably about 12 foot off the ground. Now we lived in a close, so it was 4 rows in a square, and they're like grass in the middle for kids to play, and then they had a footpath all the way around, and then the parking was residential parking, like allocated parking bays. So so the house where we lived, the living room was at the back. So that was, like I said, when I went into the house after when I'd been watching the UFOs and that, you walked straight into the living room. There's the front of the house. It was just the door and the 2 bedroom windows. So you could see the walkway to where the cars were parked, and that was it. And then like the houses down that side and the houses directly opposite. So I was sat on the bed. I remember it was a Sunday night because I was getting stuff ready for work. The partner at the time was having a shower or something. And the daughter, she was early teens. So she'd come into the bedroom to get some of her school uniform. Now I was sat on the bed, and the window, it was one that opens vertically, and it has a safety lock on it. So it only opens a couple of inches before you've got to push the button in to open it fully. So it was open, like I said, 2 inches, and I could hear the worst growling I've ever heard in my life.
Ew.
But it was right underneath the window. It wasn't on the ground. It wasn't a dog.
Oh.
Oh.
And we had like, it didn't last long after that. We had a tree, like a berry tree. There were the little red berries. I don't know what berries they were, but they weren't, there's poisonous to humans. But I ended up cutting it down about 2 weeks after. And that came right up to the bottom of the window. And whatever was there, it was a loud guttural breathing stroke growling. And it lasted for at least 2 minutes.
Oh.
My partner's daughter was like looking at me, like nervous, smiling. And I'm looking at her and she went, "What's that?" I went, "I don't know, I was going to ask you." And then I said, she said, "Why don't you have a look?" I went, "No, thanks. How about you have a look?" But it was like, but I had thought in my mind that if I was to put my hand or my head into that gap, whatever was there was going to drag me through. And I was like when you stand on like a ledge and you're looking down, but you don't want to get too close in case you slip.
Right.
So it was like anticipate, and I'm like, oh, I can't see anything. That was it. That was as close as I was getting.
Wow.
But all the time it was growling, we were talking but whispering. Like, what is it? So it's like, you have a look. No, you have a look. And it was like, but no one had any dogs. The biggest dog at the time was a bloke across the road, had a Jack Russell. But even if they did have, like, say, an Alsatian or a Doberman, something like that, that growl wasn't loud enough. And how was it under the window on the first floor?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because you can judge the sound of a person, like, because like I said, because it's a bedroom window, and I always have to sleep with the windows open, regardless of the weather or what time of year it is. So you could hear people when they stood at the front door in the other houses chatting and that, and we could work out who it was with the voice. And this is, if it was a dog growling, we would have known it was further away, but this was right underneath the window.
Yeah,
So,
that don't make sense. Wow.
I don't know any 12-foot tall dogs, put it that way.
Yeah.
At least I hope there's none that tall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Although, dogmen are pretty tall.
Yeah.
Well, but it could have. That's the only thing. And I know there's no bears in the UK, not in the wild.
And where?
Sasquatch growls.
But then, and I really don't know what that was because I refused to have a look because I just got if I have a look through that window, it's going to be the last thing I ever do.
And you said it was a berry tree?
Yeah. So it was like the little red berries. I
Yeah.
don't know. I know a
Well,
couple of trees, and it stops at that.
because Sasquatch do like berries.
Yeah, well, that tree didn't last much longer than that. It was only a couple of years old, and it's like, no, it's going.
Wow.
Yeah,
Because
that's
if it was
crazy.
something else and it had climbed up the tree, then. But
Wow.
didn't hear anything. Didn't hear anything approach. Didn't hear anything move away. But you
Wow.
could clearly hear when people are walking up and down the path. Because it's closed in, it kind of echoed a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So you could hear if someone was walking away or walking towards. And this was no rustling, there's nothing.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, that is
I
weird.
don't know what that was. And to be honest, I don't think I want to. But that was one of the weird things as well. So when Jessica did the remote viewing for me, right at the top of the page, she wrote, and I didn't tell her any of this because she's only ever been a guest on my show. Right at the top of the page, she wrote growling under window.
Oh, wow.
And
Oh.
now I have spoke about it on my show before now, I couldn't tell you what show it was on. Not got a clue. Unless she sat there and went through every single video that I've put on there, there's no way she would have known.
No,
Wow.
that got sent to Jessica.
Yeah.
That she didn't search that out.
No. That was the first thing right at the top. You know where she signs it and puts all the like the AOL and all that kind of stuff. It was there and the date. It was right next to that, right at the top.
Wow.
Yeah. She's an amazing remote viewer.
Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And it just, yeah. But I think that was one of the freakiest. That scared me out of everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the scariest encounter that I've had.
So now that we've brought it up, how in the UK, how big are Bigfoot and Dogmen? Because in the US, depending on where you're at between the US and Canada, southern and northern, they change in height and how big they are.
Well, I've heard anything between 5 and 9 foot.
Okay.
Probably more than that, but without listening back to the podcasts or YouTube channels, most of them are US based anyway. But I'm sure the tallest that I've heard in the UK is around 9-10 foot, maybe.
Okay, because here in the US, in the southern states, they tend to be a little smaller. They're like 9 to 10 foot tall, usually is what they're described. But then if you get up in the wilderness into Canada and the upper US, there's people saying 20 foot tall.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, but if they're not touched by modern man, then there's going to be no stopping, is there? Really?
Well, the speculation is that when you get up into the mountains in the U.S. and even into the tundra in Alaska and Canada, that they have to be that big and hardy to survive. And I mean, G-Search talks about woolly mammoths up there.
Yeah, yeah. I remember, and it wasn't that long ago. There was a video on YouTube of someone flying over. Can't remember where it was, and a herd of woolly mammoth, and they zoomed right in. And this was before CGI and all that kind of stuff. And you could clearly see there's about 7 or 8 woolly mammoth running through all these trees.
Wow.
And then the video just, and I wish I'd have downloaded it and saved it on my PC. And no, nothing.
All right.
Cannot find it.
Yeah, it's gone.
Not only now do we have, talk about dimensional beings and stuff like that, but then we have these uncharted. I mean, nobody goes through the tundra or the Yukon, where the real deep forest and snow and unknown. I mean, it takes a special kind of person to camp out there and take trips up there.
Yeah. So yeah. So if it was ever to anything like that, there must be at least 20 people with me. There's no way, just be 1 or 2.
Yeah.
at least. So.
Well, I think we'll end it here, Andy.
Yeah.
It's been a real
Yeah,
fun
that's
and
fine.
pleasure to have you on. Just loved everything that you were talking about. I mean, that's
Thank
right
you.
up our alley.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, everything that I spoke about is stuff that I know I've experienced, and whether there was other people there or not, I know what I seen at the time. But as to what it actually was, I really don't know.
Right. Well, I appreciate you sharing all this with us.
No, thank you for asking me to come on. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Well, and chat, we're so thankful that you're here. You know, we love each and every one of you. Catch us. I guess we're going to start doing our midnight shows again, which is actually Wednesday night, but actually falling into Thursday morning because he don't get home till midnight. That'd be like what, 6 in the morning for you?
Yeah.
6:30 in the morning.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we have the piercing the veil on Sundays, obviously, and
Yeah.
Wednesdays we have the Night Owl Lounge,
Yep.
where we just concentrate on the chat, whatever the chat wants to talk about or bring up. That's what we're talking about.
Or we'll show some of our UFO videos, and we just kind of sky watch together, and we just have a lot of fun. We took a few weeks off, and a few people were starting new shows on Wednesdays, and Tex Front Porch and Daniel Diva, her new show would end pretty much when we're starting. We just we took a break for a couple of weeks. So she's moving down to a earlier time and kind of frees us back. And we went, okay, let's just kind of start doing our midnight shows again.
Oh, so when you doing that? When you starting that one?
It would be this next Wednesday, actually Thursday morning.
12:30 a.m.
12:30
Thursday morning.
Yeah, 12:30 a.m.
Central Time.
6:30 for me. I'll get up early this week.
So it'll be Thursday. Yeah, Thursday morning when you wake up, we should be on.
Yeah. I'll set the alarm, so I'll have it right in front of me. I promise. You'll see me in the chat.
All right, and then we'll see everybody again next Sunday, and we just appreciate everyone showing up. And please go to Andy Decodes, subscribe to his channel. You guys would absolutely love his show. It's just right up our alley, just like everyone else in this community. We talk about anything and everything.
And your Facebook is 12 Dimensions, right?
12 Dimensions.
Yeah, 12th dimension. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, everyone, we love you like always, and we will see you next time.
Peace and love, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you for having me.